This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you very much for tuning into the program. It's Thursday, November the 20th. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly. David Williams, you know it. He's the producer. You will be speaking with David when you give us a call. To get in the queue and get on the air, the topic up to you. If you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial is 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 86. 26, so the list of first-time candidates to be potentially elected into Cooperstown, the Major League Baseball Hall of, the Baseball Hall of Fame, includes a Blue Jay. Edwin Encarnacion still remains with the team as some sort of advisor or bench coach or whatever he actually is. Not so sure what kind of chance he has to go to be in the Hall of Fame. A career 260 hitter, he's got 1,800 plus hits, scored over 1,000 runs, he's got 1,261 RBI. Don't know if that gets it done, but Encarnacion is eligible to be voted for. Oh, and for folks who are members of the O'Donnell High School community or in the deaf sports community, does anyone have an update on how Fallon McLaughlin is doing at the Deaf Olympics in Tokyo right now? They've already played 2 games. I think they played Cambodia and Powerhouse Brazil. I believe they play Ukraine today. It's been really tricky for me to try to find some results. So once again, Fallon McLaughlin is a O'Donnell High School student. She's the youngest member of Team Canada at the Deaf Olympics, and I'd be just curious as to how she and Team Canada are making out. If you know, please let me know. All right, here comes the winter. Well, in many parts of the province, winter is already here full force. 24/7 snow clearing. So this was a hotly anticipated announcement coming from Transportation Minister Barry Pettin. So they're talking about costs associated to improve 24/7 snow clearing, some $3 million. Before we get into what was announced, it was always highly questionable when the 24/7 snow clearing was taken away in the first place. The savings were, in and around $2 million, which is not a whole lot when you're talking about the safety of the motoring public. Okay, I'm getting tons of reaction to it. So there's some 14 routes that will be covered 24/7, ice control and snow clearing. Questions will be asked more so about what's not included. Now, it's probably a very good step forward in the right direction, but for folks who have been left out of this particular announcement, they have been flooding my email inbox, and fair enough, and rightfully so. So Baber Peninsula, Burin Peninsula, plenty parts of Central, the Trans-Labrador Highway not mentioned whatsoever. And again, look, I know it was going to be highly unlikely that every single route on every single highway would have been part of this announcement, but the routes, the 14 that are covered, good news. Those that are not are asking questions, and that's just the way the ball rolls, right? In addition to that, for this to come to pass is going to require the hiring of some 50 additional operators. That's going to be pretty tricky. Now, fingers crossed the province is able to pull it off, because I think we can all share the same sentiment regarding snow clearing, regardless of who you vote for. It'd be great if the roads were clear if and when we need to be out there at nighttime, early mornings, whatever the case may be. Insofar as hiring 50 additional operators, between the competition in the private sector and the rate of pay afforded to these operators at the provincial government level, there's going to be a pretty tough task ahead to satisfy this. Now, again, for some, it's to poo-poo everything one party or another does. And I do think this is a positive step in the right direction, but it still comes up for many residents who have taken the time to email me. It comes up short of what they were hoping for. Maybe not what they were expecting, but what they were hoping for. So the hiring is going to be particularly tricky, but fingers crossed they can figure it out, because it's going to be, whether it's competition based on compensation, it's also the concept of it being seasonal work. For people out there who are able to latch on to a company or a municipal government or a provincial government for secure, permanent, year-round employment, that, of course, obviously would be much more attractive than seasonal work, unless they've already got something lined up for summer months with their skills. But anyway, you want to take it on, regardless of it's an applause of the announcement and or wondering where your community, your region is. In addition to that, look, when people are saying that some of these routes already had 24/7 snow clearing, I'm not so sure that's 100% accurate. There may indeed have been an on-call system 24/7, and for all of the depots, the possibility when first responders are called to dispatch an operator. But anyway, it's certainly a popular topic in my email inbox. And speaking of trades, Skills Canada Newfoundland and Labrador this weekend holds their annual Intermediate Challenge. It's at the College of the North Atlantic right there in the Prince Philip Drive. Okay, so for intermediate students in grades 7 through 9, this might be an interesting opportunity for parents and children or youth in grades 7 through 9. So there's a competition, there's a bunch of employability, trades, and technology challenges. And interestingly, there's also, once again, a Try a Trades booth. So they're opening the event to the public. It runs from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And here's some of the opportunities for demos and chats with reps from Trades NL, Tech NL, Edgewise Environmental, Eco Next, Cyber Titan, that's coding operation, the Marine Institute, Workplace Safety, Electrical, Plumbing, and the CNA Campus and CNA School of Sustainability. Also opportunity for some hands-on and demos in welding. Might be interesting for some of you listening to the program this morning. Oh, and I see float in out of the corner of my eye, asking me to read out the routes, the 14 routes that are covered. I guess we can get to that if we get a call on the snow clearing business. All right, and snow clearing and traffic. If you've ever been in and out of Paradise in the early morning commute or the rush hour in the evening, it is wild. It is brutal. Paradise is growing. And growing is obviously a good thing, but it comes with some significant concerns regarding infrastructure. So while the subdivisions are planned and homes are being built and families are moving in, what are the plans for residents of Paradise for infrastructure to make it a little bit easier to get in and out of that growing, lovely community? Again, if you've ever been involved in rush hour in particular, it's madness, absolute madness. So that's a topic I was asked to bring up and happy to do it. One more on the traffic front. What were the results of the summertime speed camera program? Because the last go-around, last year when it was a pilot in just Mount Pearl, and was it Mount Pearl and Paradise or Mount Pearl CBS? Anyway, there was tens of thousands of warnings issued. This year there was going to be tickets issued. So I wonder how many tickets were issued and to what monetary value associated with those tickets. I'd be happy to get an update if you have one. All right. So yesterday, a second company was fined as a result of the flash fire explosion at the Brea facility. Of course, used to be no come by chance. And a man is dead, Sean Peddle. Several others injured. So this company called Laurenville Mechanical Contractors, there was a joint sentencing to Judge Mark Pike. The liabilities financially, $54,500. All right. It really does feel pretty cold that when a life is lost and injuries are suffered and companies plead guilty to not providing a safe workplace, that the result is monetary damages. Now, there is an ongoing criminal investigation by the RCMP, status unknown, and I'll put this out there one more time for your consideration when we talk about the need to provide a safe workplace for employees. Inside the Department of OHS, Occupational Health and Safety, their own internal audit pointed out some very serious systemic issues. So they were missing deadlines on a ton of the workplace incidents that needed to be investigated. There's a 2-year window for the government to conclude an investigation. We really need to know what's going on there because, like all of us, you get up, you go to work, you want to have a safe environment to conduct your activities and get home safe in the evening. So let's see if there's an update on that front. One of the pledges made on the campaign trail, and a good one, but obviously a tricky one, is to reduce our reliance on travel nurses. Then I read a story about an LPN who left the public sector, is now a travel nurse working for the government of Nunavut, and goes on to talk about what's required to keep nurses, whether it be registered nurses, licensed practical nurses, nurse practitioners, in the public system. Compensation, obviously, flexibility, and respect. Flexibility is going to be hard to achieve with the current staffing levels, and nurses to a man, to a woman, will tell you that is one of their key concerns. But it's the respect issue. And if you're someone who works in one of those disciplines, and you're a vet coffee or someone working at the umbrella organizations for LPNs or nurse practitioners, licensed practical nurses, in what form does respect come, and in what form is respect currently not in place, or not felt, or perceived on the job? Because, compensation and flexibility, that can be something addressed with, obviously, dollars and or policy. But I suppose policy can have an impact on respect. But where is that lost? I'm sure it's absolutely true. But for someone to spell it out with lived experience as one of the aforementioned disciplines, it'd be good to have you on to speak to that a little more for us this morning. All right. Another story in the news about no-fault evictions. Hugely problematic. The way the legislation is currently written, landlords have the opportunity to evict you with the appropriate 90-day notice. But it doesn't make it any easier, especially when we're talking with people living in subsidized housing. The affordability target is already out of reach for so many. So even if your rent is taken directly out of your income support, and then you have to rely on other resources and food banks to keep your head above water, the no-fault evictions is a growing concern. To that end, people, for some reason, don't want to talk about it, will complain about how rent has gotten away from so many, but the concept of rent control apparently is sacrosanct for some reason, and I don't understand it. It can be applied, and it can be fair to landlords. We have to understand that input expenses continue to go up, even though interest rates have stabilized. But if they can make it work in PEI and Quebec and Ontario and Manitoba and British Columbia, it's worthwhile conversation here. And yes, it can be a meaningful opportunity and a predictable opportunity for landlords year over year as to what increase they are allowed to impose. It gives some certainty to the renters. So I really think we're due a rent control conversation. Whether or not it eventually leads to actual rent control being imposed, like in Nova Scotia, they did it, but it expires at the end of this year. So I wonder how that exercise has worked for them. It's easy to understand how it can be attractive in the affordability window, but I wonder what it does to hamstring the possibility for developers to want to build rental units. The whole country and every province, it got away from us. Building rentals used to be one of the key decisions being made in the housing market, and we simply got away from it. And even just the concept of what housing means, as opposed to a roof over your head, a place to live and to raise your family, it's now simply the largest piece of equity that most of us would own. And we use housing starts as a measure of GDP as opposed to how many people are housed, how many people are unhoused. And if you want to talk about it, you can do. Oh, in a similar vein, just popped my head, is it would be nice to have an update once again on the operations at the Comfort Inn, 106 Horizons, I believe they call it these days. So we know there was plenty of conversation about the government's decision to simply lease the building as opposed to buy the building is costing tens of millions of dollars over the course of the lease. So how successful has it been insofar as transitioning residents out into more stable housing? And what type of supports are required into the future for anyone who has been transitioned out? How many people are living there? How many people living in the Airport Heights neighbourhood have seen a positive change insofar as what was initial concerns regarding public safety and for crime, petty or otherwise, being committed in that region? And then, of course, the Airport Heights area and the disconnect between some of the other services that many residents will need, which are primarily downtown, was obviously part of the problem. But you want to take it on, let's please do indeed do it. All right, a couple of quick ones. We've heard the Premier talk about conversation with the Prime Minister regarding the Atlantic Fisheries Fund, which is going to be exhausted of funds come March. That's one thing. And for inshore harvesters with a crab license, exactly what's going on here. So I'm trying to follow along as best possible about this issue because there's a lot of money sitting in bank accounts that is supposed to be paid out to the harvester by the Association of Seafood Producers and their members, or I guess by their members. So the panel that was established accepted the FFAW's position back in April. It was pretty clear. The chair of the panel said on Friday, in stating only 30-pound bulk boxes are to be used in the calculation of the settlement price. So now apparently it's in the hands of the Department of Labour. I'm told that the agreement that was struck and the panel signed off on is non-binding. So it goes to the Department of Labour, and I guess there's still a standoff here as to what's going on. The annual rate of frustration in the fishery is mind-boggling. If we're going to go through the exercise of establishing panels, can we not bring it to an area where whatever's decided, what the panel signs off on, is binding? And that both sides, whether they like what the panel has decided or not, it will indeed be reflected in monies being paid out in a predictable time frame, which apparently does not happen, and it didn't happen again this year. So if you're a harvester and or a member, or pardon me, someone working at the union level, we can talk about it and you can explain it a little clearer. All right. And sticking with the wildlife. I never know what's going to pique the interest of callers or potential callers and the listeners, but oh boy. When conversations were spurred on yesterday about moose hunting licenses, specifically those who are disabled, have applied for a license, have designated a hunter, and the concern primarily was how close the person who's the disabled applicant has to be to the hunter. So it's within eyesight or 800 meters, and it's only up until the shot is fired. If the hunter has to track the moose in to finalize the kill, then, of course, the disabled does not have to follow into the bush. Man, the reaction to that was overwhelming. And I think the one question that's the most common is, what difference does it make where the disabled person is when the hunter who's designated, the name is on the license, which has to be presented upon being approached by a wildlife officer, supposing you're on the quad or in the truck or at home? What's the difference here? And I think that's a very fair question to be asked. The rationale has not been explained to me as to why that makes a difference, but that got a ton of feedback yesterday, an absolute ton of it. All right. Hear a lot about defense spending, and we'll talk about it a little bit more, but we don't hear a whole lot of talk about veterans. All right. So I've spoken about this issue in the past, and it's the deal that was supposed to be struck between Veterans Affairs, the Department of Defense, and veterans living in long-term care in that program. It was supposed to be that the rent would only be reflective of the least cost option anywhere in the country, including the territories. And the lowest cost is indeed in the territories. But that was not applied and understood at the Department of Defense, and nothing done about it. When asked about it, then Prime Minister Trudeau said that his Minister of National Defense will be looking into it, Minister of Veterans Affairs. Then, what they refer to as being buried in the most recent budget is to retroactively exclude the territories from the formula, and consequently the overcharges, which could be $3,000-4,000 to veterans in long-term care, is going to be money's lost. It does seem pretty unfair if inside the government departments they knew that they weren't appropriately applying the formula, were ignoring the territories, and now in a budget are going to retroactively exclude the territories from the calculation. Boy, oh boy, we can talk about, the gratitude to veterans and taking care of veterans, even though we know so many veterans are living, whether it be homeless or with PTSD or whatever the case may be, and the bureaucratic warfare that they have to go through to access services. But this seems patently unfair to me. Retroactively axing the formula that the government created and did not appropriately apply? Man, oh man. And in the world of defense spending, and that's an important one, I don't mean to gloss over because it is obviously very important. Defense spending. Fighter jets. The country's made some moves insofar as blending the Coast Guard in the Department of Defense, the aviation operations at Transport Canada blended into the Department of Defense to bolster what is perceived spending on defense capability. And then it's the fighter jet issue. All right. The country spent a number of years back and forth about the F-35s. And then 88 were ordered from the United States. And here's the problem. Number one, it's whatever the capacity is of the F-35 versus the Gripen. How much time one or the other spent on the runway or spent on the tarmac awaiting maintenance or whatever the case may be. The effectiveness while in the air. It gets further complicated when this boorish fool of an ambassador from the United States to Canada, Pete Hoekstra. This guy is absolutely useless. So, for starters, diplomat does not apply to Pete Hoekstra. The way he marches around the country with his chest pumped out, talking about Canada and Canadians, and saying things like, the only way trade talks will be once again entertained is if Canada commits to buying the F-35s from the Americans. Right? I mean, it's basically extortion. And it's ridiculous. And then bellyaching about the ad regarding Reagan's stance on tariffs that was advertising in the United States, and talk about political interference, 10 days before an election. I think that must refer to municipal elections and the gubernatorial elections. But boy, oh boy, are we honestly pretending that the Americans, including the president and Ambassador Hoekstra, have not been doing the exact same thing, even during the federal election campaign? It's just the heights of ignorance. A diplomat's role is pretty clear. Yes, to represent his country, but it's also important for diplomats to try to understand the country that they're being represented in. So as Canadians, to be spoken down to by this buffoon is infuriating. From folks holding conferences, like once again at a manufacturing conference, he went off about 51st state and, there's no way to talk about American politics, but yet the Americans talk about our politics all the time. Referring to the Prime Minister as governor, annexation, 51st state, on it goes. National security concerns that blew up our signed-on trade deal. And so here we are. It's not about national security. It's not about fentanyl. It's about whatever appeases the president. And for the ambassador to say, unless you commit to buying the F-35s, no more trade talks, is that really how negotiations amongst historical allies should be conducted? I mean, is there an opportunity for our government to simply say, Mr. Hoekstra, get out, go away? Because this is not improving or massaging anything to do with diplomatic relations, nothing to do with trade negotiations, nothing to do with our centuries-old alliance, referring to our border as artificial and all the rest, but yet this is the bellyaching we get from the U.S. ambassador. Boy, oh boy. All right, very quickly. I want to talk about ethics screening and Michael Sabia. I'll save that one. Very quickly, happy birthday to Nathaniel Weir. Really appreciate you tuning into the program, Nathaniel. Hope you're doing well and hope you have a great day with Victoria. So happy birthday to Nathaniel Ware. Good on you, buddy. Appreciate your support. We're on Twitter or VOCM Open Line. Follow us there. Email address is openline@vocm.com. When we come back, let's have a great show. That can only happen if you're in the queue to talk about whatever's on your mind. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. So a topic that got a lot of attention there for a little while is one country, one economy stuff, and that was reference to interprovincial trade. What's remarkable is for years we were told, well, there's nothing can really be done about it. The provinces have the right to impose restrictions regarding the trade of various goods across their provincial borders. And then, lo and behold, all of a sudden it was a possibility. And things were going to get attended to in 30 days. Well, not so quick. There has been a formal interprovincial trade agreement now signed by all the provinces and territories for the little bit freer flow of some goods. It does exempt food and alcohol. Now, direct-to-consumer on alcohol products, it has been in place in this province, and that's just, you can pick a product and have it mailed directly to you, not bulk opportunities for businesses, restaurants, bars, or otherwise. So that's one thing. But in the world of food, and in particular meats, it's wild that we don't have nationwide standards for how meat is, how it's handled at the abattoir level, how it's packaged, how it's shipped. So for things like this, there was a very specific story about a farmer in Nova Scotia who was raising black Angus cattle. And the market was so small because of these restrictions. It's probably a very wise idea that if we're going to pretend that interprovincial trade can be helpful, and it could and should be, but products regarding food, specifically meat, if the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, notably say Canadian Food Inspection, if they are operating, which they do in every single province and territory, are we really still at a point in 2025 where there are different standards for slaughter, for packaging, for shipping, for labeling? But apparently so. So whether or not this comes with any real meaningful economic impact regarding this now formally signed interprovincial trade agreement, I suppose remains to be seen. Remember, it was back in 2017 where there was also a nationwide interprovincial trade agreement signed, and the impact of that was negligible. Few people really quite mad about any comments made about U.S. Ambassador Pete Hoekstra. I will never understand the idolizing of one politician or another and the inability to recognize what's going on. It's really quite entertaining, albeit extremely frustrating at the same time, but if you want to talk about it, we can do it. And one of the stories that was in the news, and we've actually had folks on this program in the past talking about a variety of illegal products that are on the ground for to be purchased, including contraband tobacco. Look, times are tight and people are willing to try and save a buck, and that includes, if you're a smoker, to buy contraband tobacco. It is a huge business. Just for consideration, if you are indeed buying the cheap smokes behind the trade school out of the back of the van, you're saving money, no question about it. And it's $1 billion plus industry in this country. What I think needs to be part of our thought process here, and you spend your money how you see fit, what needs to be part of our thought process is contraband tobacco is directly linked with organized crime. So while we worry about the scourge of drugs and guns and human trafficking, contraband tobacco is easy pickings for organized criminals, and they're making a ton of money on it. Just about every time you see one of the major busts, including guns and drugs, there's contraband tobacco and cash and various other paraphernalias associated with the drug trade. So again, you're going to do what, as you see fit with your own money. It's your money. But it's probably worth remembering that buying contraband tobacco is absolutely filling the pockets of organized criminals. And organized criminals are causing and wreaking havoc in the country. Look no further than drugs and guns. Add to it human trafficking, which some people pretend is simply something you see on the television screen or on the silver screen. It's very, very real. It happens in this province. It's astonishing to know that it does, and obviously most of it goes on behind closed doors or lurking in the shadows. But buying contraband tobacco is absolutely fueling the coffers of the criminals that we know live amongst us and are creating enormous societal problems. So that's back in the news once again, and I think it's worthwhile having that conversation because, yeah, saving a few bucks on a pack of smokes absolutely is a feel-good. I suppose the next conversation there is similar to things like precursors for fentanyl and other illicit and illegal drugs that make their way into, pick a port, Port of Montreal. We don't examine every single container, but are we leaving an awful lot of investigations of various shipping containers and or transport trucks undone? And if it's simply about personnel, if we did a cost-benefit analysis of how much it would cost to implement stricter controls at the ports, whether that be the major ports, Vancouver, Montreal, or otherwise, compare that to keeping as much, and I know the war on drugs has proven to be extremely futile, but we can't just throw our hands in the air. And with contraband tobacco, as we're told, for all intents and purposes, it only gets here one way. Now, I'm sure some comes across in some private fishing vessels or whatever the case may be, but it's tractor trailers. And so it's a captive audience. If you're going to be getting passage on Marine Atlantic, and I know it's going to be resource intensive to have a careful examination of every piece of cargo that comes across, but that's how it's getting here. Every now and then we see a bus where a transport truck has been pulled over, and what's the load? Contraband tobacco. I mean, there was one bus not long ago where the criminals had over $1 million worth of cigarettes, contraband, no taxes paid cigarettes, coming from Ontario or Quebec, which I suppose is the hotbed for that particular activity to begin, and it ends up here, because of course it does. All right. I did mention I wanted to get into Michael Sabia and ethics screening. As the clerk of the Privy Council, actually I should save that one and try to get to the break on time, but I do want to talk about ethics and the Prime Minister and blind trusts or the concept of divesting. It's a massive conversation and in many forms, dominates some of the conversation regarding infrastructure projects here, specifically housing. As a past chair of Brookfield Assets Management, of course, they are, for starters, if they sit on managing about $1 trillion worth of assets, of course they're going to be involved in a variety of industries and have their fingers in a bunch of different pies. So when Brookfield and we talk about things like modular homes, it should be part of the conversation. And we can and we should talk about ethics screenings, how often it happens, how the process works, and what kind of protections it actually offers for Canadians, regardless of your political stripe. Let's check in on Twitter, where VOCM Open Line, a bit of moose license conversation. Also, email address is openline@vocm.com. When we come back, plenty of show for you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Let's see here. Let's go to line number 1. Zach, you're on the air.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. You were talking about President Trump earlier, and as an American who lives in Ohio, I just want to remind everybody that the majority of people are not for Donald Trump, and it's very much an embarrassment that he won the presidency again. Our big problem is a lot of people don't vote. So we're stuck here with it, and as much as other people, like in Canada and other places, are upset with them, most people here are too. So I just want to make the point we're not all for them, to put it mildly.
Yeah, I mean, I know that. There's somewhere in the neighborhood of a third of the population actually voted for the president. There's a big load of Americans didn't vote, and of course some that voted for Kamala Harris. So, look, I try not to dig too far in on American politics, even though it would make for a fascinating show if it was nothing but American politics. But, Canadians who get upset when we talk about the Americans, the fact of the matter is what happens in the United States and political discourse in the United States and economic issues in the United States impacts us. Like, to pretend it doesn't is really quite silly. So at some point, to ignore the elephant in the room is really a betrayal to a well-rounded conversation. I don't like thinking about it or talking about it or listening to them, but it's a real issue in Canada. Of course it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I work in radio here, so it's what I do and talk about politics here in the United States. So it's very contentious, to say the least, when he's president, and hopefully, I have a sinking suspicion he might try to stay longer than his term, even though it's against our Constitution. But we'll see. And just want to make that point again. We're not all like that, so.
Yeah, it's really amazing to watch. Now, I will say, as a Canadian radio host, that we have tons of our own systemic domestic problems that have been self-inflicted wounds. It's absolutely true, and it's absolutely real. But again, to the summary point of a lot of things that happen in the States, because we just have to think about it. It's like, the rubberneckers when you see a car accident. It's like watching a train wreck south of the border these days. And, of course, with the advent of cable news really consumes a lot of eyeballs in this country. I don't even know what the ratings might be for compare CTV or Global or CBC to CNN or MSNBC or whatever the case may be. But a lot of people watch American cable news. And so how politics is discussed there inevitably makes it into the hearts and minds of Canadians. It just does. So that's why we every now and then make reference to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it seems that, at least in Newfoundland, that the people are a bit more likely to have a debate than an argument, because there's a big difference. And here, that's kind of lost. So it's like watching a car crash every day when you wake up and watch the news here. So.
There's plenty of polarization in this country. There's plenty of hyperpartisanship, and some of that is just baked in. It's always going to be part of it. But I hope we don't find ourselves at a point where there is simply no discussion, no conversation, no debate, as opposed to just yelling at each other. Because when you see it happening, what happens is the people's business does not get attended to. When it happens, government shut down. I mean, which is also a strange feature of American politics and governance, is they can shut the government down. Here, if you can't get a budget through, the government falls. I mean, it's a pretty interesting contrast.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, I enjoy your show. Thanks for taking my call, and I appreciate it.
I appreciate your time, Zach. Good luck.
Thanks.
Okay, bye-bye. That's interesting. Look, and again, no one politician has all the answers. No one political party has all the answers. And when we pretend that that's a fact, when of course it's not a fact, it really does hamper any real forward momentum. Because I think regardless of who you vote for, I think we all share a bunch of common sentiments and hopes. Is to be happy and healthy and gainfully employed, access to health care, good education for our children, a safe community. So every now and then, when we remind ourselves of those things, we probably get more things done. Because the whole standoffishness of political discourse and the inability for some people to recognize the shortcomings of pick a politician, of Mark Carney or of Justin Trudeau or Pierre Poilievre or Erin O'Toole or Stephen Harper or anybody. I mean, to not be able to acknowledge the distinct and obvious shortcomings, sidestep missteps, scandalous behavior, boorish behavior, if we can't do that, then we are really going down a path that is, it's already a tricky and danger-plagued pathway already, but it only gets worse. It just does. There's not one politician alive today, nor one politician in the history of man that has all the answers. It's just not. It's never been a thing and never will be. Let's go to line number 2. Selena, you're on the air. Hi, Selena.
Hi, Patty. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay, my reception is horrible. I'm sorry about that.
No problem.
I just want to say one quick thing first about the Postal Canada thing.
Okay.
I live in a rural area, and it's really freaking everything up. So that sucks. Anyway, aside from that, you were talking about contraband tobacco.
Yeah.
Okay, I haven't had a cigarette in 2 years. But I'm telling you, everybody's selling contraband tobacco. You can get it anywhere. If you go to buy a pack of cigarettes at the store, they're dry as contraband because nobody's buying them. And I believe that's what the government thinks. They want to drop the packet. They can drop it for like $2, and they're still going to buy contraband. And you can't control it. And every time the RCMP comes out with, oh, we made this huge bust with this many cigarettes, they have no idea how many cigarettes are out here or anywhere. They're everywhere. And everybody's selling them.
Apparently so. I suppose I'm sheltered insofar as I don't see a whole lot of it around, but I'm sure if I made a couple of quick phone calls around to my buddies who are smokers, I could probably find out pretty quick where to get my hands on them.
Because if somebody smokes, the price is, the cheapest pack of cigarettes, I believe, at this point that I know of that you can buy is like $19. And if you get contraband, you get 10 packs, and they're $5 a piece. Now, if you're addicted to cigarettes, what is somebody supposed to do when they got no money? They buy it, right?
Oh, yeah.
So
I know why people do it.
Dropping the price of cigarettes by $1 or $2 is not going to help. And like you said, they're coming in. They can't check every piece of cargo, right?
Yeah, I know it'd be pretty resource intensive to have a careful opening and examination of every load and every transport truck. Of course it would. But the point I was making, look, people are going to try to save money where they can save money, whether it be contraband tobacco or otherwise. But it's probably worth considering that organized crime are the beneficiaries of contraband tobacco. And if we are fearful of them and loathe what they've done to our communities, in some form, just buying their crap, and in this case, contraband tobacco, is just making them stronger, makes them more rich, right? So
a lot of people that are selling contraband tobacco are not bad people. They're trying to make money too because nobody can afford anything. And when it comes to taxes, if you buy contraband tobacco, you still have to buy gas. You still have to pay taxes on your groceries. So they're getting the money back.
Oh, yeah.
So, the whole deal with contraband, I understand that, like, the cocaine and all the drugs are coming with it, and that's terrible, right?
Yeah, I mean, those... Okay, go ahead.
Pardon?
I said go ahead.
No, you go ahead and
well, it's like this street corner drug dealer. I don't think people are insinuating that person is the Hells Angels, but where they got their drugs and their guns probably came from an organized crime gang. So that's the point. We know that people who are selling contraband are probably not members at high levels of organized crime. They're just the foot soldiers that get put in harm's way, legally speaking, by the big gangs. I mean, that's how it goes. It's the attraction or the lure of easy money. We know why people get involved in selling drugs or selling contraband tobacco or bootleg liquor is because they can make a buck off it. And that's always going to be part of human nature. But my summary point was simply to say, look, it's not as innocent as simply buying a cheap pack of smokes. You're basically putting money right directly in the pocket. I pick a gang, the Hells Angels, or whoever.
That's actually not correct.
No? What's correct?
Because they're not hitting anybody that's just selling smokes. They just wait for 2 years to do an inspection or whatever, their detective stuff, and then they make a big bust, and it's a big deal to make just to make the public feel safe. It has nothing to do with the Hells Angels.
It does.
Well, maybe. But it's not all them.
No, it's not just them. I just picked one gang that came to mind. There's a bunch of organized crime elements in the country. Yeah, of course there is.
Well, there's one in Gander, too.
Yeah, it's everywhere. Yeah, we used to pretend that we were kind of immune to those types of criminal element, but we're not, and of course we're not. You know. Anyway, anything else you want to say this morning, Selena?
No, I don't know. It just seems like the government is like, we got addicted to tobacco, and now they're making people suffer. There was an old guy that called in last year that was crying on the phone. He was dying, and he couldn't afford a pack of cigarettes, and that's all he wanted was a pack of cigarettes because he was addicted his whole life, and he couldn't afford a pack of smokes.
Which is a sad state of affairs, individually speaking. Selena, I got to get going. I appreciate your time. Hope you're doing okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, bye-bye. All right, let's get a break in here. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Sam, you're on the air.
Yes, good morning, Perry. How are you today?
Doing very well. Thanks. How about you?
Oh, best time. Beautiful day. Perry, I just wanted to take a few minutes just to encourage people to go online and fill in that survey for the recreation fishery, because I had a look at it, I filled it out, and I know some of the questions are a little bit different from than what we were expecting, but one of the ones was for about reporting. Now, we keep saying every year that we don't know how much is really caught with the recreation fishery. And if we do have to record what is caught and where and so on, right, I don't think it's a bad idea. It's one that we can, I don't think most people wouldn't have a problem with it. But the problem that I see with it online, that there's a lot of communities around this island that don't have internet yet. It's hard to believe and everything, right? And you get a lot of older people, probably even just like myself, who's not that good at computers, things like that. And it'd be a little bit hard. I would have liked to see if you had to have meetings around the problems like they had some there a few years ago. No. So I'd like to encourage everybody to fill that survey out, because we do need the signs to see what's on the go. And I'm just hoping that everybody will get on and fill out and have their say, right? Because this is our opportunity. If we don't fill it out, we can't say much. No, we have the opportunity there now to have our say. So I'm just hoping that everybody will go on, if they can, and fill out this survey. No, that's the only thing I wanted to say this morning, right? Just for encouragement.
Fair enough. You say there's questions there that people might not expect, such as?
One of the ones is there for, oh God, I tried to think there. For filling out for the quotas stuff, right? And have to report that, right? Now, I think some people wasn't expecting to see a question there like that, right? And do you agree with having less quota or up and things like that, right?
Yeah.
I just don't have the survey right here, right now. It's just hard to think right off, right?
No problem. So the bit about logbooks, e-logbooks or otherwise, most people that react to these types of calls say, I do not want to have to do anything like that, because I should be able to, firstly, I should be able to go out whenever I want and take whatever I want. So that's one sentiment. But let's just think about what actual data might mean for the conversation. If we had a season of logbooks, then we would know exactly, if people were honest in reporting, we'd know exactly how many fish were taken in the recreational food fishery. Then you'd have a starting point to talk about, well, if all of a sudden we can have a commercial fishery, then how are we still stuck with X, given the fact that we took, whatever minuscule percentage of cod that comes out of the water in the form of the recreational food fishery? I think for people that want more, I think this is a good way to get it. I really do. I think we'd be able to prove that, hey, food fishers take so little that these types of restrictions that are currently in place are patently unfair, and here's the data. But right now, we just have it as an emotional conversation.
Well, that's right. I totally agree with you, that Penny. I wouldn't have a problem with that at all, because I figures after if it's open up every day during the year, The first year, I would say you'd see a fair amount of people going out. But then if all that is reported, and then in the second year, I don't think you'd have, probably would be down by at least a quarter of a percentage of people going out, because it's a novelty right now, right? I know a lot of people got to have food on the table, and they do depend on it, right? But I think when people will get used to it, that they can go out again at any time, it will be totally different. You'd see in the second year, with everything documented, would be a way less people going out.
One of the key restrictions, or the key problems with the current restrictions, is that inside the 39 days, inevitably there's going to be plenty of those days which are simply not fit to go out. The weather is way too dangerous, the sea is way too high. So that's another problem here. And I don't think we've done a very good job in recording days lost to weather inside 39 to bolster the argument as well. So I'm with most people. I think the restrictions are far too heavy-handed, but we don't have any data. All we have is emotions. And I think one season or 2 seasons of actually compiling the numbers would be extremely effective in getting better access.
Oh, you would definitely have better access, Paddy. And the other thing with it is, you take for just on weekends, the year before last, I kept track of days that we missed down Bangers today. There was 18 days that was not safe for people to go out on the water, right? And this year, I still tried to keep track of it, and I think there was somewhere 12 or 14 days that you could not go out on weekends, so on account of the weather. Now, there was people went out, but to me, it was not safe for them to be going out. It's all according to what type of a boat you got. And you got people going out in those little aluminum boats, 12, 14 feet, and the winds can come up fairly quickly on you here around Newfoundland, as everybody know. And you got people that's working on weekends, shift workers, things like that. They can't get out. Maybe every second weekend and maybe every third weekend they might have off, right? So those people don't get a chance to go out at all. No. So I think that's why we needed open the whole time, and let's record for a year or two, as long as it's got to be done in every other province, so that we're all treated the same.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are some distinct differences between this province and other provinces, whether it be daily bag limit, I'll call it, and, more access 7 days a week versus just on the weekends, which really keeps a lot of people out of play anyway. There's plenty of people listening that only work on the weekends, or do indeed work on weekends, I guess better said. Sam, anything else you want to say this morning?
No, I'd just like to encourage people to go on and fill out the survey, and if you do have problems with the computer, things like that, get one of your friends or somebody, right, to go on, hook into it for you, right, and go through the questions, and everybody can have their say.
Absolutely. I mean, we always ask to be consulted, but then sometimes when it's open, we don't take advantage of it. So I think we should. I'm going to fill it out. I haven't had a chance yet, but I will, just for the sake of. Sam, appreciate the time this morning. Thank you.
I appreciate it too, Paddy. Thanks a million.
All the best. Bye-bye. Okay, let's get around breaking. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2. Say good morning to the Mayor of Lab City. That's Jordan Brown. Mayor Brown, you're on the air.
Thank you for having me this morning, Patty.
Happy to have you on. How are you settling into municipal politics?
Oh, it's been fantastic. I've been enjoying myself. It's been a bit of a learning curve from provincial politics, but I have a great council, so it's been fantastic.
Rio Tinto, what do we know?
Well, right now, like I said before, they're going through apparently a restructuring. So they've been trying to, and they changed, the designation of IOC, moved them into the greater iron ore portfolio, and there's been a lot of, upheaval, in the local workforce with them.
What is the upheaval, though? I don't think anyone has any specific numbers of layoffs or who exactly is getting laid off. What do you know?
So right now, from what we've been seeing in the community, that there has been a number. They haven't given me a full number yet because it's not just Lab West. They're also in the Port of Sept-Îles, St. John's office, Montreal office. So there've been they've been saying, quote unquote redundancies, and they also been, restructuring their, I guess, the operations in the region. So unfortunately, and my heart goes out to these people that this came with, layoffs locally and also in their other offices, which has been, a bit hard to watch.
My understanding is that no unionized paid by the hour workers are being laid off. Is that the case?
From what I've seen and heard, there's no hourly workers been. It's been strictly within staff and management.
But regardless, if they live in the community, a job loss is a lack of money, disposable money being spent in the community. So with what we know about the numbers of layoffs, just paint a picture of what that actually means in Lab City.
Well, these are individuals. These are people that work in the community and stuff like that. They're friends, their family. Some of these people that have been laid off, I know. I've worked with in different capacities over the years, and it's no matter if it was 1 employee, 20 employees, 50 employees. It's hard to watch because we're we're Labrador West. There's 10,000 people in Labrador West, but at the same time, that's still a small community, and that's still a small group of people that we all know. So it's one job. This layoff is hard, and when it adds more, it just gets harder.
Being in municipal politics, obviously different insofar as role and authority than being in provincial politics, but obviously the issues are very similar. You just have different tact to approach them. So what are still some of the top issues for Lab City that you need help or support from the province?
Well, we still get houses built. We still need seniors housing built. We're still having issues, around, keeping and retaining and recruiting healthcare workers. We still have a shortage in healthcare recruitment. We still have, all these things that persist that we know we need to have a strong conversation with the province about, supporting places like Labrador West. And, we have despite what's going on with Rio Tinto, there is still a demand for iron ore. We are now shipping manganese out of Labrador West. So we have another mineral that we're shipping. And we keep having people knock on our door. Kami project's still around the corner. We want to make sure that we have the housing and capacity available for that project when that starts getting moving forward. We don't want that project to be a fly-in, fly-out project. We want people to move to our community and stay in our community because the services and things are there. So these are the conversations that we need to have with the province about moving our community forward, and we want to have a respectful conversation and get them to see from our point of view on why we're asking for these things.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but Happy Valley Goose Bay just finalized a housing project, affordability, and I believe it was seniors housing, 30 units, 36 units, something like that. Is it just a matter of mimicking what just got executed in Happy Valley Goose Bay?
There is a few nuances. They also had support from the Indigenous communities and that live in that area. It's a bit different in Labrador West. We don't have Indigenous governments in our area that can help with these projects. So there is we don't have that piece of the puzzle. But there's other options that we can go with. But we do need the support of the province and from the federal government. I had a very good conversation with our new MP about this, and he was very receptive. So I have to have some further conversations with the federal government on what a project would look like. So we're trying to move that forward, but the nuances are different. Labrador West and Happy Valley Goose Bay, we're both in Labrador, but we do have similar challenges. But there is some nuances there of difference when it comes to the communities. Labrador is a very big place, and we have the 4 regions of Labrador, the North Coast, Central, Western, and Southern, have different nuances that we do have challenges that we have to overcome. But there's some stuff we have learned from Goose Bay, but there are some nuances that are a little different.
Describe those nuances. Is it relations with Indigenous communities, or is it different economies, or what do you mean by that?
Well, so Goose Bay actually has a developer local in their community. We have no developers in Labrador West. There is no housing developer in Labrador West. We don't have that. They had that. They also have access to Indigenous governments to partner with. We don't have an Indigenous government based in our community like Happy Valley Goose Bay does. So we don't have that access to those groups like they do. And so we have those kind of nuances that we need to get pots of money from. We don't have an Indigenous government to help us out, but we need to find another partner similar to that we just don't have in our community right now.
Okay, fair enough. Any other issues you'd like to broach this morning while we have you, Mayor Brown?
Oh, we have this community. We have some things to work through, but the things are looking good and looking up. Despite my heart goes out to the people that were laid off, despite with what Rio Tinto's doing. But other than that, like, we've seen some growth in our community. We've seen things that we still have CAMI project coming down, but we need to work together and to try to get the housing in place, healthcare in place, and things in place, because we want to grow. We want people to move to Labrador West. We want to grow our community, and we want to be able to make sure that we have job security and we have things for people to do when they get there. We just don't want to be just a bedroom town. We want to be a vibrant, growing community, and we need to all work together. But what this going on with Rio Tinto does really put a little rain cloud over what normally has been a pretty good day. It's been hard, but hopefully now we can have a conversation with Rio Tinto and find ways that we can move forward.
Fair enough. I appreciate your time this morning, Mayor Brown. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Take care, my friend. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye. Jordan Brown, the mayor of Lab City. So it would be nice to get a little bit more information. Let me just click this message open here about exactly what's going on at IOC, Rio Tinto. I also probably should Google up exactly what sort of profits came in the door at Rio Tinto last year. You're going to see a bunch of big business, so-called restructure or right size or whatever the right phrase is. But this is a message from someone in the area. As of now, no union jobs were lost, but that could change. But the local staff have many years like this, many years close to retirement, were fired so the Australians could come in. What does that mean? So there's a big number of families from Australia that came in to be part of leadership at Rio Tinto or at IOC. I assume that's what that means. And again, when Jordan Brown talks about fly in, fly out, look, many people, at the government level, it's the whole concept of simply keeping a mine open, expanding a mine, opening up a new mine, and fly in, fly out doesn't necessarily jeopardize any of the revenues flowing government's way, but it absolutely does impact the community. For every reason imaginable, to not have a fly-in, fly-out operation is just best for all hands. And a lot of this comes down to things like we talk about all the time, is housing. I'll put it out there for your consideration one more time. When we talk about the expanded tax base with expansion in the mining sector and or royalties flowing to the government, if some of that money was specifically earmarked, as opposed to it all just flows into the general government coffers and government spends it however they see fit. If part of the negotiated benefits agreement said that X percentage of the royalties would be committed to building housing, because then you cure a bunch of ills with the one benefits agreement. So there'd be an opportunity to not have fly-in, fly-out. There'd be more housing that's required in Lab West or any part of Labrador or any part of the province if we see any big economic growth. But again, we've gotten away from that type of approach to housing and our relationship with industry. So when industry says we need access to healthcare, we need access to housing, we need access to education for our operations, then in their best interest would be place a bit more of an active role in improving that access. Let's get a break in. When we come back, Mayor Peter Lush out in Gambo wants to talk about the 24-hour snow clearing announcement yesterday by Transport Minister Barry Petton. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Peter Lush is the mayor out in Gambo. Joins us on line 3. Mayor Lush, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty, and how are you this morning?
I'm doing very well. How about yourself?
I'm doing good, Patty, and first of all, I want to thank you for the great service you and VOCM serve to the people of Newfoundland and Labrador. And Patty, my topic this morning is after I heard the minister's announcement yesterday about the 24-hour service for the winter months they were going to provide in Newfoundland and Labrador with regards to the equipment operators. And I got to say, I was astounded and absolutely disappointed to hear Minister Petton's announcement and the government of Newfoundland and Labrador. Patty, I don't know if the minister knows, but the main thoroughfare from Gambo and surrounding areas, which was left out of this decision, many people depend on this for transportation. We have healthcare workers, we have military workers, we have airport workers. We have support workers, all who work 24 hours a day, who travel to Gander to work. You know, and Mr. Petty's government ran on a campaign that they either misled people or people took it wrongly, but they did say they crafted their blue book very articulately. And of course, now they can say, well, we didn't say all roads. But Patty, I'm going to speak to you, just as Minister Petty said that he said in 2016, one life lost was one too many. Well, Patty, I have a personal experience. Back some 40 years ago, my wife and my next-door neighbor were driving to work early in the morning. My next-door neighbor got killed, and my late wife ended up a paraplegic in a wheelchair for 30 years. A woman who never got a chance to see her grandchildren born or grow up. So, Patty, to me, this is unfair, not right. It's either a political decision. In the area that I live, some 20,000 people live in this area. And we're not going to have the 24-hour coverage, which was based on their platform. So, yeah, I am disappointed, upset, and the residents in this area are likewise.
I bet they are. You know, even while these promises were being made on the campaign trail, I'm pretty sure I said something along these lines. It's a very attractive promise to make. It's absolutely going to get some support from some voters in different parts of the province. But at the exact same time, even with just this announcement yesterday and these 14 routes, it still comes along with the need to hire 50 additional operators. So when we talk about whether it be healthcare and expanding collaborative care clinics, that requires healthcare professionals. 24-hour snow clearing requires more operators. If we're already saying it's going to be difficult enough to hire 50 operators, imagine if every single route was covered. So I called it a virtual impossibility. Whether or not this is phase one or whatever the right phrase might be, I don't know. But I always had a funny feeling that 24/7 wasn't going to be all-encompassing, and lo and behold, it's absolutely that.
Yeah, you're probably correct, Patty. And of course, I wouldn't discuss. I don't want to get into everything that was put in the blue book. And as you talk about, yeah, we talk about healthcare, and the government's going to change that and get more workers. Well, I worked in the healthcare for 40 years, and 40 years I was there. It's the same issues that I've heard repetitively. But my main concern is, the government did say they were going to do it, and the onus is on government. Since they're the ones who made the announcement, the onus is on government to find the workers and to put in place fairness is fairness. And, of course, I want to repeat Minister Petty's words again. One life is one too many. So is he telling me that people who live in rural Newfoundland, who live on the outskirts of the main thoroughfares, their lives mean nothing?
I'm not disputing, like, your point that it's government's responsibility to staff up positions that they create. Absolutely it is. And who else could be responsible for it? And whether or not this even gets off the ground to the full extent of these 14 routes, I think is questionable.
And Patty, probably, and I would think many of the workers that government had put in the work service Department of Highways, many of those employees are part-time, and many who only work certain hours, so maybe they're smart enough to realize, yeah, we still got people here who only work part-time. I'm not sure what their long-term plan is, but I hope that they will correct the wrong that they've done to the people in this area.
We'll have a follow-up conversation with Minister Pettin ASAP. And on top of, it's going to be tough, competitively speaking, to get operators who might work in the private sector, possibly making more, and possibly with permanent full-time jobs, in the summer driving a dump truck and in the winter driving a snowplow or operating a snowplow. Seasonal jobs are hard to fill. I mean, there's lots of people out there clamoring and absolutely need employment and take seasonal if they can get it. But some of these heavy equipment operators, they're in pretty high demand as far as I can tell.
You're absolutely correct, Paddy. And that is probably one of their options.
Yeah, we'll get the minister on here pretty quickly, and I appreciate your concern this morning. And I've of course, gone through Gambo countless times, but in and around your area, when we're talking about public safety on the roadways, what's self-service like out in your neck of the woods?
Self-service?
Yeah.
It's not the best, Paddy. No, it's very sporadic. Certain parts of town, you can't get it. Going to the Kittlewake Coast, you might get it and you might not. And and of course, we've been after all governments. I've worked with all different levels of government over the years, and we've been after practically every government to do something to improve it. But yeah, it is not the best.
No, it's not the best.
We are the best tourist area, Paddy.
It's not the best anywhere. I mean, just for context, I live in the east end of St. John's. There's places in my neighbourhood with no cell service, and I'm a townie. So I can only imagine how bad it is in other parts of the province.
Well, Paddy, I've drove practically from Bay to Spare in my previous, before I retired, and I did the Kittlewake Coast Loop, the Lewisport area, and all of those areas, and I can tell you that you might, if you were lucky, you might get the cell service once or so in a trip to Bayvert, Bay to Spare, all those areas. Cell service is terrible.
Yeah, and it's part of the public safety conversation as far as I'm concerned. Mayor Lush, I appreciate you making time for the show. Thanks for the call.
And thank you, Paddy, very much.
My pleasure. Stay in touch. Okay, bye-bye. I mean, we talk about it like up and down the Burin Peninsula or the Bayvert Peninsula or up the Great Northern Peninsula, whatever the case may be. Even just driving across Highway 1, it's no problem to drop a call on the main highway. And look, it has been an improvement in service when you're lucky enough to have a few bars on your phone dealing with things like 5G, but that's been one of the complicating factors. It has a reduced geographical footprint versus 5G or 3 or SOS or whatever that other one is called, that other level of connectivity, but it has compromised the reliability of the service. So government can talk about pilot projects for boosting signals, and of course the big telecom companies who wield so much power, when they don't have a business model that adds up to building more transmission infrastructure, unless they get government handouts, corporate welfare, they're not going to do it. So we are stuck between the proverbial rock and a hard place on this one. Let's get a break in. When we come back, Jason wants to talk about the contraband smokes. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go. Line number 4. Jason, you're on the air.
Hello, Paddy.
Hi there.
Somebody just came on there a while ago talking about contraband cigarettes. Mm-hmm. I think they said it was like $5 a pack or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't bought one, so I don't know how much they cost, but that was the number he used, yeah.
Okay, what did the government do with marijuana? They made it legal.
Yep.
Was that to get rid of the black market or to compete?
That's an excellent question. I guess...
How come... Oh, sorry.
No, you go ahead. Finish your point.
How come they can't do the same thing with the tobacco? They want to get rid of these black markets. Are they making more from the Hells Angels or whatever you guys were talking about? Or can't the government make $1 at it?
The government can make $1 at it. A huge portion of what people pay for a pack of cigarettes is tax.
Yes, but the only reason why it's illegal or contraband right now is because it's tax-free. So the government they want that tax money.
Of course they do.
They did it with the marijuana. Why can't they do it with the cigarettes?
Yeah, marijuana didn't turn out to be the big cash cow that all governments thought it would be. In fact, it's come up woefully short of what the government thought it would be. You know, some of the motivations on that front were, one, the black market. The black market still exists. Number two, the backlog in the courts, which has cleared up a bit, and rightfully so. I mean, people going to court for getting caught with a half dozen joints is kind of a waste of time in the courts, in the big scheme of things. And then it was the revenue. So your point is that if government wants to get rid of the contraband market, they would simply remove all the taxes, and then consequently that would be change the water on the beans. Is that what you're saying?
I guess so, because it says it's made in First Nations or something, First Nations territories.
A lot of them are, yeah.
Wouldn't that be like a reserve?
Yep.
Okay, well, 3/4 of the people here on the island they got native in them, and I think there's only one reserve that I know of, and that would be like Han River.
Yeah, I suppose you could call some of the indigenous communities in Labrador, quote unquote, similar to or reserve. And I don't even know what the technical definition is. But yes, some of the contraband comes from reserves. Like my wife is from Cornwall, Ontario, and in the river there's a big island that is a native reserve, and they're notorious for the contraband tobacco. So does it all come from those reserves? I really don't know, to be honest, but I've seen plenty of packages that say exactly that on the stamp. Yeah.
Yes, I've seen that. Northwest Territories or something like that. So I wonder if the government is just making more money on the players and the Maurier and everything than having to bring in native cigarettes?
Well, I don't think the government is responsible for bringing in the contraband. And I would imagine, like I made reference to organised crime, and don't take it from me, you can take it from the Coalition Against Contraband Tobacco and the Commissioner with the Ontario Police, Provincial Police. They're saying exactly that. It goes hand in hand with drugs and weapons and human trafficking for organised crime. So the root of it, whether it be a drug lab making fentanyl in the BC interior, before that product gets to someone's body, it goes through the hands of criminals, and generally speaking, organised criminals. So I guess it's a similar conversation regarding contraband tobacco. And you think about it, they refer to these taxes as sin taxes. So for people who are sinning and buying cigarettes or buying alcohol, it's an easy place for government to make money. And in some form, it comes across as preying on people's addictions, right? Doesn't it? Because if
that's true,
tobacco is one of the most highly addictive substances on the face of the earth. And of course, we know what the addiction to alcohol means in this province. So they're making money hand over fist. The NLC last year returned to the provincial government in excess of $200 million.
Yeah, okay. One more question, Patty.
Sure.
Does anybody on the West Coast hear jets in the nighttime? Like they're really, really low. This is not like a little Cessna or a helicopter or anything like that. These are big turbines, and they're really low. It starts around 8 o'clock at night and goes to about 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. And if it's a clear night, you will not see it, you will not hear it. As soon as it's cloudy, they're really low.
What part of the West Coast do you live, Jason?
I live in the Steamville area.
Okay.
It's not coming from Deer Lake, because if that would be a commercial flight, they'd be miles in the sky. You wouldn't hear it anyway. But these are really low.
I have no idea what it might be, but if anyone on the West Coast wants to chime in with what they hear at night regarding air traffic, happy to take their call. And like, I live in the East End. I live in a flight path. I've almost numb to it. It's like having a grandfather clock in the house. When you first get it, all you hear is the chimes. After a while, you don't hear it at all. I live in a flight path between Cougar helicopters and commercial air travel and cargo flights. I almost don't even hear them anymore because it's non-stop.
Well, you're getting used to it, I guess.
Yeah, I suppose,
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much for your time, Patty.
I appreciate yours. Thanks for the call.
Not a problem. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah, I mean, I use the grandfather clock analogy because, you know, if you move into a house or you buy a grandfather clock, of course, every time the chimes go off, it just dominates your senses. Same thing when you just move into an area that's in the flight path. And I guess most of the area around here, but I do live in one of the most popular approach lanes into St. John's International. And again, sometimes when the helicopters are extremely low, they're extremely loud. But a lot of the aircraft, the fixed wing, don't hear it as much as when we first moved in, because that's all I would do is be out in the park looking up at the planes going non-stop over my head. Let's see here. Let's go to line number 1. Good morning, Glenn. You're on the air.
Hey, good morning, Patty. How are you?
Great today. How about you?
Listen, hello from St. Joseph's Island here in Buzancha Bay. But you know something? Monday night, I had a flight come over. It was a double prop, kind of like those small ones here, Canada, that runs back and forth to the mainland. You know the ones I'm talking about, the smaller ones?
Yeah, Jazz Dash 8s or what have you.
I didn't recognize any name or anything on it, but it came right over our cold here in St. Joseph's, maybe at about, I would estimate, from the look of the hill, no more than 1,000 feet.
Ooh.
And it was kind of weird, too, you know what I mean? Like I said, what an unusual place for a plane to be that with no recognizable markings, you know, flying that low. I don't know, unless it was something private and somebody was out showing them around or something. That's what it felt like.
Yeah, I think most of the private aircrafts are probably jets as opposed to twin props, but who knows? I have no idea what it was.
This was a twin prop for sure. Kind of like that one that they use for Fisheries and Oceans, that blue one that's in there in town that flies around out here. But anyway, listen, Patty, I just want to. I couldn't help but listen to what do you call it? You were talking to Sherry Gammon Welch, and my house started to vibrate yesterday. I could have swore it felt like termites trying to crawl out of the woodwork. All of a sudden, they're showing up on the radio. She's about 8 years too late. I told her when I voted for her, she's from my hometown. I told her when I remember when she got in, I said, Sherry, she was just a, what do you call it? Not a minister at the time, but what is the name, Patty?
Like a
MP
she was an MHA.
Yes, thank you, MHA. Yes, and one thing I said, like, please don't forget the people. Don't forget the people that put you there. And once they get in there, we can't find them. They can't answer emails, phone calls. I hear it on your show all the time. I'm an abstinent listener out here, and I've been home for a year and homesteading here since April. I can't get a doctor since I've been here. I'm over a year. It was a year in August. Forget about a doctor. I can't even get a phone call to talk to one. I got a cavity that I want to get fixed, but I can't get a dentist. If I go to emergency, they're not going to do anything. They're going to say you need to see a dentist, but I can't get a dentist. So what do? You know what I mean? So I'd like to know, my question is, Sherry Gambin Welch, where were you? Where were you? How come I can't get a doctor? Why don't they get on and talk about some of the things that concerns people of Newfoundland, like healthcare, food? Nobody can afford to eat. It's a little easier out here for us because we're off-grid. And if anybody can afford to go off-grid and start a life like that, it'll be a whole lot cheaper way to eat. It takes a little bit of time at first, but people are hungry in this province. And you know what? Did I hear correctly? I'm not sure it was on VOCM that for Christmas they're having given away pet food. I know I didn't hear that correctly.
You did.
I thought they said they're giving away food for people downtown. It had to be that, was it?
No, I think that was on the morning show here on VOCM. I was only half listening as I tried to prepare for my own show, but
yeah,
I think there's.
Well, I was whole listening, and the impression that I got that what's going on in the province with seniors, homelessness, people living on the streets, can't afford to eat, can't afford their light bill, can't afford anything. Like people are just a step away from being no different than everyone downtown that's walking around and trying to find a church to get something to eat or somewhere to sleep. And Sherry Gammon Welch, you forgot all that when you got in politics, darling.
I think
you forgot the
just
people.
1 second, though, Glenn.
It's too late now, Patty.
Wasn't her call about the nurse practitioner program?
Well, you know what? It was that and other things. You know what? Well, absolutely, that was the problem. Well, you know what? Go ahead and come out of the woodwork. You're just a little shy too late on getting to the front line and taking care of this problem. Now we're in a spiral. What are we going to do now? Like, we're hopeless, man. This province is hopeless.
For some people.
I thought I'd never say it.
And for some people it is.
I just came home. I'm back in this problem a year. What a scary place. I said, 25 years ago, I left and went away, started going away, and I came back, and is this really what we are now? I don't know, Patty, but I just had to offload today because and all of a sudden, the PCs are in. Let's give them a chance, but you can't do any worse than they did for a decade, for 10 years. What did they do? Name one good thing they did and I'll never call your show again. I swear to Almighty God, never. I can't name one thing. I can tell you World War II and where we were 10 years ago. It's hopeless, sad.
Okay, a couple of things. So the nurse practitioner program, I'm trying to recall the ins and outs of the conversation. It was an update as to the program that was structured by the past government. Where are we in implementing it? And then I think the next thing regarding healthcare was returning what is now urgent care at the Whitburn Hospital to full-time emergency care. And I mean, people can,
Exactly. Why, Patty? Why? You had lots of time. You had 10 years to do this. Now that you're not in power, now it'll be all, we know it's going to be tit for tat, toe to party line. That's what she's done since she's been there, and a lot more. They had the opportunity. Hogan had the opportunity. I can go on and go back through the years. They've all had the opportunity. They've wasted money throwing it at these nurses. Why not hire nurses? Why do we have to fly them in and fly them around and put them up in hotels and pay for their vehicles, pay for their lodging? Nobody paid for my lodging. Out west, I paid for everything.
So where did you come back from?
I came back from, the last place was Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan.
Okay.
I worked in the oil fields in Fort McMurray, and pretty much since I was 17 years old, I've been running back and forth, you know what I mean? But for the last 25 years, it's been in Saskatchewan, in Swift Current, Saskatchewan, and Moose Jaw. I worked for a paving company there. One of the things I did was build roads in the oil fields. And now we're homesteading, and it's so scary. Like I'm 60 years old. I'd like to have a doctor and a dentist. Is that okay, Sherry? Like, can I have a doctor and a dentist, please?
I have a couple of questions for you.
My wife had a doctor for...
Okay.
My partner, Patricia, had a doctor for 25 years in Marystown. Her doctor just retired. Guess who she's got now? She's in the same boat as me, and she had a doctor for 25 years. Sherry, did you hear what I said, Sherry? 25 years she had a doctor. Now she doesn't have one. That's about it, Patty, buddy. Listen, keep up the good work, and I promise I won't toe any party lines. I don't care who they are. Whoever's there, do your job. Thank you.
Glenn, if you need to travel for a dentist, there's a dental clinic in Kelligrews that's accepting new patients. I know that's a little ways away from you, but it's called Concept Dental. They called us, so we're passing that along to you. And
Concept Dental, that is awesome. I knew if I called you, I'd get something, because that's who you are, man. You are the people. You're the people's voice, Patty Daly. Don't forget it. I knew you when you were with Rogers.
Oh, that's not yesterday.
Little studio, you remember that?
I do remember that studio. They were good days for a while.
Exactly. Back in the day, you've come a long ways, and you're our voice. And I believe that wholeheartedly that together as a bunch, we can do a lot.
Well, a lot needs to get done. Just a very quick question on looking for a doctor. Have you, and this is not perfect, but it's the only real pathway to finding primary care, is to get on Patient Connect. Have you signed up, you and your wife?
I am. I'm signed up. I haven't heard anything. I think it's 6 months since I signed up, and I haven't heard a word. Yeah,
it took me 11 months, but it's from signing up to getting a doctor, which I'm really quite pleased with now that I have one. And I didn't have a family doctor for almost 2 decades.
For us, we're off grid here in St. Joseph, so for me, it's not a big deal if I go to the doctor or not. To go online would be perfect for us. So there's lots of easy ways. If the government will look at implementing this, there's no reason why we all can't go online, get a doctor, get a prescription. I'm not going to go into it another day, Patty, when I have time to digest today. And Sherry Gavin Welch, you're a little too late. If you want to take some advice, I would resign right away, and maybe some of your colleagues also, because you're never getting back in. Newfoundlanders, this is 2025. We're not dummies anymore. You can't fool us. You can't hoodwink us. Thanks, Patty.
I appreciate your time, Glenn. Good luck.
No worries, brother.
Okay, man. Bye-bye. All right, let's see here. Let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go. Line number 2. Daniel, you're on the air.
Good morning, sir. Hope you're well today.
I'm well, thanks. How about you?
Good. Listen, Mr. Daly, you don't have to ship, smuggle tobacco anymore. You can order it online for $20 a carton.
Yeah, there's a couple of sites that I'm familiar with, Select Smokes or Smokes Canada, the two that I've heard of before. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, but I haven't got much to say. If I could say one more thing, it'd be okay.
Yeah.
Listen, when Mark Carney was campaigning his first visit over in Victoria, British Columbia in April, he said the old age pensioners was going to get 5% in free parks at that time. Did you hear anything about that?
Just can you repeat yourself? Sorry, I just want to make sure I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, he said on his campaign trail, that he was giving the old age pensioners, if he gets in, 5% raise, and free parks right at federal parks.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of that campaign, but that's available to more than seniors. There's access to the national parks and via rail, and there's some other stuff involved with that too. I'd have to look it up because I can't remember all the different things there. I'll see if I can find it, because that's absolutely a thing.
Okay, then. Okay, Mr. Daly, I'll just listen on, I guess, see what's happening.
I appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome, Daniel. Bye-bye. Yeah, so what he's referring to there is what they call the Canada Strong Pass. So what it provides is admission to over 80 Parks Canada places for 12 months. You can get it online, and it's a real cut cost stuff. So the cost varies, though, depending if you're a child or you apply as a family or you're a senior. And for those who are 17 or under, it's free. And so there's a bunch of different things there. Via rail, access to parks, and the like. And it expires at the end of this year, pretty sure. Anyway, let's keep going. Line number 3, Ken, you're on the air.
Morning, Pat.
Morning.
I was walking down the road to pick a few groceries up, and I had my phone on listening to you, and you mentioned rent control.
Uh-huh.
Now, the first thing I have to say is that I don't think there needs to be government intervention in the private sector. However, prior to what I heard you say, you're talking about rent control. I was listening to one of your colleagues. They were doing an interview with a big manager or whatever at Bridges to Old. And they've been servicing the community for some 30 years. And they said for the first time ever, they've got people in their 70s, depending on their services, like food banks, even at their shelters, because they're getting, like you said this morning, you said people are getting their 3 months notice because landlords are wanting to renovate and stuff like that so they can make more money. Now, I don't know, you mentioned several provinces where rent control is working. Okay, now, to start with, that 3 month window, okay, when you move into an apartment, generally you sign like a year's lease or something like that. So is it possible, in the event of government intervention, that landlords must give tenants not 3 months notice to get out, but a year?
Anything's possible because it's regulated by legislation. So, yeah, that's where the rules fall. And then, there's appeal board. The Residential Tenancy Act governs the whole concept of rent and being a landlord and a tenant. Then there's tenancy tribunals for appeals, what have you. But, government intervention is an interesting way to put it, because government kind of intervenes in a lot of stuff. But rent control, I just think it's worthy conversation here, because it's not only the vacancy rate, which is woefully low, it's around 1% in the city, but the cost for renters is absolutely out of control. Like, if you were able to scrimp and save for a down payment on a house, your monthly mortgage payment on a regular $400,000 bungalow would be less than many people are paying to rent 2 or 3 bedroom units. So that's why I think the rent conversation regarding affordability can possibly have a bit more of a conversation about rent control. And it's not hamstringing landlords necessarily. Like, there could be floating targets. Ontario 2.5%, Manitoba 3%, Prince Edward Island about 1.5%. So it happens elsewhere. A good examination of what it meant for controlling rent and what it meant for maybe throwing cold water on developers, I just think it's worthwhile looking around and seeing how it is working elsewhere.
Well, Patty, I can tell you the truth there now. Like, a friend of mine that I knew for years in Alberta, she lives in Lloydminster, and she's a senior now, and she just rented a 2-bedroom apartment for $900 a month. Now, try to find a 2-bedroom apartment anywhere in Newfoundland for $900 a month.
Yeah, I'm not really that familiar with some rent outside of the Northeast Avalon. Well, I guess in Gander, because I have a child that lives in Gander. But just going around and looking at some of the rental opportunities, like I know people who own rental units, and they'll say, of course, someone will move out of maybe one of the basement apartments, and they put it up on, say, Facebook Marketplace or wherever. And if they put it up at 2 o'clock, they got 50 people want to see it by 5 o'clock. So it's obviously a big issue, and people are willing to take what they can get, even if the price or the cost is just exorbitant compared to what it was even just, say, 5 years ago.
You know, right now, like I 3 years ago, I was looking for a place to live, and, well, I wasn't necessarily looking for an apartment. I'm willing to go with a share accommodation. But even people renting rooms now, they're getting so many calls that they're having viewings, like a real estate agent will put out a viewing to invite people in to look at. You know what I'm saying, right? That's just to rent a room. That was unheard of not that long ago, where you had to be. They get so many calls that they can't even have interviews with people over the phone or anything anymore. We're having a viewing this coming Saturday just to look at a room for rent.
Absolutely. You're right. The pressure is extremely serious for so many people, not only individuals looking to rent a room, but young families, and I hear it all the time. I mean, if people only knew how many issues we deal with off air, they'd be shocked, I would think. Ken, anything else before I have to go to the news break?
Well, I don't know. But myself, I'm in a position where I could be losing my spot to live there next summer. I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to look for a place. I think I'll just move back to Alberta, where my chances of not being homeless, rather, is a lot better than Newfoundland.
What part of Alberta would you move to?
I would probably move back to Lloydminster.
Lloydminster, okay. Straddle the border with Saskatchewan?
Well, yeah, I lived there for 6 years already, so I drove to Abdare and whatnot also. I know the town pretty well. Right? I mean, over the course of my life, I spent most of my adult life in Alberta, but a few years ago I decided to move back home. And I had no problem with living in Alberta, except for that extreme cold. But anyway, I was never, I don't know anything about homeless or never having trouble to find a spot to live. You know, I might not get what I want, but take something temporarily and stuff like that. So I don't know. You know, so my question, are seniors in Newfoundland going to have to move out because they can't find a spot to rent because people that rent have gotten too damn greedy? I don't know.
I don't know if I can answer that general question, but I think the rent squeeze is hitting virtually every age demographic. Ken, I appreciate making time for the show. I'm late for the news, but you're always welcome.
All right, thanks, Patty. You have a good day, man.
You too, pal. Bye-bye. All right, it's going to break. Don't go away.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Welcome back. Let's go to line number 1. Tracy, you're on the air.
Hi, Patty, and how are you this morning?
I'm okay. How about you?
I'm good, thanks. Patty, I'm calling. I'm wondering if you've had much feedback on that app that Canada Post now requires us to use to send things internationally, namely to the U.S., Zonos or Zunos?
We haven't. I know what it is, but we haven't had any feedback necessarily on air, no. Tell us about your experience.
Okay, well, I went to use it because, like everyone else in Newfoundland, you have family and friends all over God's green earth. Sent things to the UK, no problem. Went to send something to the US, where I was told by the representative at Canada Post at my depot, well, you have to get this app. So, okay, I go and get the app. till it was all said and done, to send a 4-inch by 4-inch package, they wanted me to pay $49.95. And that's for a 4-inch by 4-inch package.
Boy, oh boy, that's pretty dear.
And they wonder why people, and then of course I'm like, this is like 4 inches. It's a little teeny tiny Christmas present, and so I'm like, okay, I'm not paying that. I'll do it through Amazon. So I'll send my Christmas cards. To send a Christmas card to the U.S., it came out to almost $18.
And they wonder why people are struggling to want to use their service. So just so people know what we're talking about, the application that Tracy's talking about is ZONOS. It's a prepay app. The only convenient thing about it, now, obviously it's pretty expensive, as you described, for a 4-inch by 4-inch package, but it does do the customs declaration as well as a tracking device, and calculates all the duties. So that's sounds like a good customer friendly, but it does come with a pretty hefty cost.
A very hefty cost. Prior to this, I think this came in effect at the end of August, from what I could find out. Prior to the end of August, I can send things to Scotland cheaper. My family is Scottish by origin, kind of thing. So you're sending things back and forth. Prior to this app, I was sending things to the States, probably $17, $18, a box, and paying maybe $4 to $5 for a card. And then, but then at the same time, it's convenient and that's wonderful. But for a 4-inch by 4-inch box, like $50, like not a chance.
No.
This is why people have little to no sympathy, because right now, I have friends and family who are in the States who are not getting their Christmas presents because, in addition to what I've already spent, I don't have that $50 to shove a 4-inch by 4-inch box in the mail.
No, and this was just regular post. This wasn't even like expedited or overnight or anything like that. This was just standard, put it in the mail.
It was a standard shove it in the mail. It's worth your while to download it, get a box, and do some of the measurements. For example, Christmas cards come in different shapes and sizes. If your Christmas card falls beyond, I think it's like maybe a 4 by 6 or something, they classify it as a parcel. So then, of course, that if you have a 5 by 7 Christmas card per se, they will classify it as a parcel, and that $6 or $7 card, it works out to a whole lot more money.
Do you happen to know the origins of Zonos? I know the regulations changed on the American side regarding prepaid duty. Is that the reason, or do you know any more about it than I do?
I don't know any more about it. I even, when I was at my depot here in Bay Roberts, I even said to them, is there another app? Is there something, a little cheaper that I could use? And number one, they weren't very friendly. And number two, no, it has to be that app. So I'm like, that's okay. I'm going to go home, and the things that I had purchased for friends and family away, they'll just come to friends and family locally. And unfortunately, I'll be using Amazon, because at least with Amazon, it's, a minimal shipping price. Or if you like me and you have Amazon Prime, it's free shipping for most things.
Yeah, I'm trying to listen and think at the same time regarding what changed here. So someone's going to correct me if I'm wrong here. So I think there's a regulatory change where it used to be, if I send something to the United States, the recipient would pay the duty, right? Someone would come to your door, and you get something in your box, they have to go to the post office, and they say, okay, the duty is X. But now I think the sender pays all the duties, right? Which is why we've seen such an increase.
Yeah, the sender's paying all the duties. For example, I put a box in the mail this morning for Scotland, and it was a 6 by 6 box. This thing came to like $25. That was it. Whereas, a little 4 by 4 box going to the U.S., going to Chicago, it was like $49.95 or something. And I'm going, number one, I didn't pay that for the present. Number two, there were no expedited, policies. It was still going to be the same standard policies. It would take, 7 to 10 business days or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, my God. So, number one, it hurts to shop locally, because now it's one thing to shop locally, but if you want to buy these things to send it elsewhere, the cost is through the roof. especially if you have friends or family that are abroad, for example, U.S. per se. I'm like, nah, that's okay. I'll just use Amazon Prime, and I will order my things on Amazon Prime, pay my free shipping, and they'll still get their Christmas cards.
Fair enough. People will look for the deal. And I'm pretty sure this all boils down to who pays the duties when we're talking about the United States. Pretty sure. I'll have to look into it a little
Pretty
further.
much. From what I could gather, I've sent things to Germany, I've sent things to Scotland, and I've never had an issue.
Mm-hmm.
And this morning, I'm like, it was like well over $150 to send 3 things if I were to do it.
Yeah, there'll be people on the other end not getting Christmas cards or gifts, I suppose, if that's the duty in the packaged cost.
Yeah, not a chance. I'll take my chances and order things through Amazon Prime. Like I said, at least with Amazon Prime, not all things, but most things are free shipping. And, you get your estimated arrival date. You get your tracking number the same as you would through Canada Post.
Absolutely. And it's probably helpful tidbits of advice here for those who are yet to put their gifts into the mail, whether it be through courier, Amazon Prime, or Canada Post, especially if we're talking about the United States being the destination. I appreciate you talking about this morning, Tracy. Anything else you'd like to say?
No, that's fine. You're doing a wonderful job, and I listen to you regularly.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate your time this morning.
Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, is that what changed? I'm pretty sure, right? The Americans changed who pays the duty, because in the past, we've all experienced it, there'll be a package delivered that you have to go to the post office or over to Shoppers or what have you, and they'll tell you, well, there's X required for the duty, and you pay it. But I believe it used to be the Americans paid the duty, now the sender pays the duty. If I'm wrong, someone is guaranteed going to set me straight. Let's get a break in. Joan, you're next to talk about seniors. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Let's go to line number 6. And good morning to you, Joan. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Morning.
Just reading this, I don't know if it's a scam or what, but it's from CRA, and it said that seniors are getting $844, a one-time payment, being automatically deposited on November the 18th to the 25th. This was posted 6 days ago.
Yeah. There's no confirmed CRA payment that I'm aware of for seniors this month. Or it would have been last month anyway, because that's what was floating around. I'm not so sure if that's a real thing or not, to be honest with you.
Oh, yeah. I went to the CPP website, right? And that's where I saw it.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose I could have a little closer look here. Okay. Well, maybe it is. Okay. Are seniors getting extra money 2025 in Canada? A complete guide. And this looks like a reputable website. Good news on the rise for millions of Canadian seniors. The federal government has confirmed that an extra payment of $844 will be issued in 2025 to help retirees manage higher living costs. This comes as a part of a top-up of CPP and OAS. So I guess it's simply a top-up. Nothing you have to apply for or do anything.
No, that's right.
Yep.
So, remains to be seen.
It looks like it is. So, I mean, this is a site that I've used in the past, and I haven't found it to be anything but accurate. But apparently this month, and so if you're set up with direct deposit, you'll get it. And if you're set up just to simply get it mailed, you will get it. And now I will confirm at the very next opportunity here, but it looks like it's a thing. Direct deposit between the 18th of November and the 25th. Paper checks may arrive early December 2025. How about that?
Yeah. That would be great for me. My husband was just rear-ended and by a hit-and-run driver, and our car was rolled off, and we get nothing from the insurance.
Oh, when did this happen?
The 27th of October on Foxtrot Access Road. He's 79 years old, right?
And there was no witnesses or nobody saw anything and can help you out identify who rear-ended your husband?
Nope. This was 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, that's brutal. What are people like?
Yeah. Anyway, thank you for your time.
I appreciate yours, Joan. Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye. Yeah, now I will, as I said to Joan, I'll make sure I go directly to the source and make sure that that may indeed be an accurate figure. But I just looked at two different sites very quickly, and these are investment firms that I've kind of used for information in the past, and it looks like it might be a thing. One-time payment reported some articles. I'll have to figure it out when I get a second. Let's go to line number 2. Alex, you're on the air.
A very pleasant morning to yourself and Mr. Williams and all your staff.
The same to you.
Thank you. I certainly don't want to cause any controversy here. My intention is to, I just feel like I remember saying to my girlfriend, who's looking daggers at me here, careful what I say, remember saying to her, this particular MHA or MP was extremely helpful to me in the past, and I could have ended up on the streets, and thank God I didn't, thanks to them. And then I said, so we're both in the same situation right now. That's this year, and we are going to end up on the streets, which we did. And so I said, I think I know somebody might be willing to help us with the present difficulty. And that was Miss Gambin Walsh, but I believe I just heard a conversation, and I thought, I'd just like to pick up for her and express my experience with them, and I do not know her, but called, this is the second time over years, and we're just little people, We're no one of influence or we have no means, and how are you going to end up in the street then? And so I said, I'm going to give her a call. And you never know, maybe one of her support staff or somebody might try to see if they can help us out. But to my surprise, Ms. Walsh herself called me almost right away. And she said, are you willing to let me have the authority to advocate for yourself and the girlfriend there? I said, absolutely, which she did, and solved our problem immediately. And guess what? We're not living on the street. And I just wanted to say, she certainly got her good side. I just wanted to let that be known.
It's like most politicians. Right off the bat, for so many people, as soon as somebody gets into elected office, people just have this baked-in mistrust of politicians. And we know where that comes from. But regardless of what party you represent, there's plenty of politicians out there that are trying to do some good for some people. Now, some are just, riding coattails and doing little to nothing. But there's plenty of them are trying. Whether or not they accomplish what people are hoping for or what people need is a different question. But not every politician is a bad person, even though some people think exactly that.
Couldn't agree more, sir. Thanks so much for your time. Just wanted to portray a different side of her.
I appreciate your time, Alex. Thank you.
Great morning,
You too. Bye-bye. Yeah, and people hate to hear it, but not every politician is rotten to the core, right? Are some? Absolutely. And it's pretty plain to see. Probably one of the worst things is that people who are novices to the political game, they run throughout their campaign, they get elected, and some of their very independent air or independent flair goes by the wayside so quickly because the world of party politics really doesn't allow for a whole lot of independent thought. The world of whipped votes, the world of party politics, and the world of party platforms, and no wiggle room available for many of their elected officials, especially the newbies, it becomes a problem. Let's go to line number 4. Bernadine, you're on the air.
Hi, Patty. How are you today?
Okay, you?
I'm good. My apologies. I have a touch of a cold, so I won't keep you long. I was calling in relation to a story BOCM ran on your website 2 days ago. Jesse McCormick, Federation of Labour, talking about the occupational health clinics and their advocacy work in making the call again for such a thing in our province. For the record, just so the public know, the Marystown Shipyard Families Alliance is an incorporated group representing occupational disease claims from the Marystown Shipyard. We currently represent 160 injured workers from that site, and we can account for 225 deceased members from that site. Our advocacy started in 2006. and we are a nonprofit group. I can tell you unequivocally that since our inception in 2006, we have never had a relationship with the Federation of Labor, either under Lana Payne, Mary Shortall, and Jessica McCormick. In fact, the opposite has been true. They have never acknowledged our existence, let alone reach out to us to interact in any way in any of our advocacy work and what we were striving to do. We take great exception that she gave the impression publicly that she had made the call for occupational disease clinics in this province. And if that's the case, it's news to us. The Mary Stan Shipyard Families Alliance formally presented to the Health Accord in 2022 Sister Davis, I believe her name was, and Dr. Parkray, and gave them a very detailed presentation as to what we expected, representing injured workers, and what intake clinics or occupational disease clinics would look like. What Ms. McCormick explained in her news story on your website was that these clinics, her advocacy was for clinics that would help injured workers navigate the system. I can tell you also that the Federation of Labor has worked against us in our advocacy, and what we have seen is work that goes against how we represent sick workers. The fact that she would say that an intake clinic or occupational disease clinic would be set up to help people navigate our current system of representation of injured workers, i.e. Workplace Newfoundland, to us would be a continuation of what we see as a bent system and their participation in it. They have done no advocacy work in the best interest of workers, specifically our group. Intake clinics or occupational disease clinics, as we know from ALCAL, Ontario Health Clinics from Ontario Workers, are set up to, first of all, diagnose injured workers through the intake clinic process, which is it's a system of professionals, i.e. occupational disease doctors, nurses, occupational hygienist, epidemiologist, and occupational hygienist, toxicologist, the list goes on. What she is describing doesn't even touch on that. Our idea of an intake clinic, given on the template from Ontario, is early intervention and detection, and she makes no mention of that in her story, and that's very concerning. For the record, also in 2002, Lana Payne, Unifor National today, CAW at that time, presently under Lana Payne, this time in 2006 under Buzz Hargrove, their responsibility at that time in 2006 was to set up an intake clinic for the Mary Stan Shipyard workers so that we could have in place exactly what I just described, which would be early detection, early intervention, prevention. Not what Ms. McCormick describes as come to us when you're actually in the system and we'll help you navigate it, because that does not work. That is a broken system. And the fact that she would advocate for such a system is very, very concerning to us, because it certainly gives the impression that she is okay with the status quo, as also she indicated Dr. Parfray. Dr. Parfray also is well advised of what we're doing, very well advised. The intake clinic that he discussed in 2022 with us in our presentation, we've never had any contact regarding him in that context since. And if there's something in the works in our province under the participation of at least the Federation of Labor and Dr. Parfray, if there's something that we don't know about, then we can say that Mrs. McCormick's story is a very big red flag, and we have some serious concerns as to what these people or their accomplices or their cohorts have in place or are working on a project. Now, if there's an announcement coming, we are very concerned. We have been a standalone advocacy group in this province, Patty, and you are well aware of that. We are not affiliated with any other group or organization, right down from the National Union to Federation of Labor to the Canadian Labor Congress to every entity in this province has not recognized our group. And go ahead. I know you have a question for me.
No, that's okay. I am late for the news, but what I was going to say is we're due to invite Jessica McCormick back on the show, that's just now newly re-elected to her position at the Federation of Labour, and this can be part of the conversation we have with her. And if you want to send me along a bullet point email with some of your concerns inside what constitutes a red flag, I'll be happy to incorporate it. How's that, Bernadine?
That sounds good, Patty, and I would actually... That's a good starting point publicly, and I think that I hope it certainly opens the doors to other groups, certainly Dr. Parfrey and any other group in this province that has a stake in the occupational disease footprints in this province. We represent the people. We are the people. Our families are. We're personally attached to this, and the fact that after 20 years that we don't have a seat at the table when every other group sits together and makes decisions about our families, our loved ones, and we have no say. We will not continue after 20 years to stand for that situation, and Jessica McCormick would be the one to get it started, but we're asking for every workplace Newfoundland, occupational health and safety, any other group, and especially the Lana Payne and the president of the National Union. She has a role here. She has refused to help us, and thank you, Patty. That's a great idea, and we look forward to hearing from Jessica McCormick, and I will certainly send you in your information.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Have a great
You're
day.
Welcome. You too. Bye-bye. All right, time for the news. Don't go away.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
Welcome back. Let's go. Line number 1. Ruby, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Morning.
I just want to respond to Mr. Davis, Paul Davis, on his chat this morning on the news. I want to send him a bouquet for the wonderful job that they are doing at the gathering place. And I know firsthand because I do street outreach and I do spend a lot of time down on the parking lot of the gathering place helping people. And they do a lot of good for those people. And when they complain and say that they're barred, I agree with Mr. Davis. There is a reason, and a good reason. You cannot go in and push staff around or curse on them and be nasty to them and expect to be able to get good service. And if you deal with some of those street people, you would understand what I'm saying, because I've been doing this now for nearly 3 years, and I have never had an issue with anybody at the gathering place or any of the residents going to the gathering place. Nothing, only good. So I kind of think if you give a good art, you get a good art back. And I want to send a big bouquet to the gathering place. All the staff, I find them very, very good. And they're very good to everybody that go there as far as I'm concerned.
And fair enough. Look, I mean, places like the Gathering Place with the full suite of services they offer, it's never going to be perfect. It's a very tricky group of clientele. It's very complex societal issues. But from where I sit and where I stand and the things I've heard, they're doing what a lot of other organizations can't or won't. So I'll put it that way.
And you're exactly right. Because from a pair of socks or a pair of underwear, put it whatever way you want, up to a winter's coat and a hat, plus a bed, plus meals. Now, they can't do it for everybody because they only have a certain capacity. But there's very few people walk away without a meal. I don't know anyone. Even if they're barred from the gathering place, somebody goes and picks up a meal for them. So they are providing an excellent service. And if St. John's didn't have that service, it would be very, very, very different.
And
There'd be a lot more hungry people.
No question about it. I mean, just look at how the number of people who rely on the gathering place, that number has grown exponentially. So consequently, so has the operating budget. I mean, they just created another, what is it, a 39-bed shelter that adds to the shelter system here. So again, it might not be perfect, but in a world of imperfection, they're certainly putting forward a good effort. I can put it that way. I mean, I don't know all the ins and outs of the operations at the gathering place, but I know full well that even if you look at the numbers of people that rely on them, it has grown so quickly, so dramatically, that I would imagine they're having a hard time keeping up.
Well, I've been going down there for nearly 3 years, and let me tell you, the new faces that you see every day, and I mean it's not by the month or by the week, it's by the day that you see new faces. Whether they've been incarcerated and they're coming out with nowhere to go, or they had to lose their house or apartment because they couldn't afford to pay it. Where do they end up? 90% of them end up at the gathering place, and somebody's got to help them. And I know I gather clothes, I gather food, snacks, I gather things from friends and acquaintances, and I help those people not only at the gathering place parking lot, but on the streets as well. And it's a very sad situation out there, let me tell you. And without the gathering place, I don't know where all those people would go that gets 3 meals a day right now at the gathering place. And a place to go inside and sit and talk and get counseling and get whatever they're getting. It is one big bouquet that they need. And I think the people that are sitting and saying some of those nasty things should do what I'm doing a little bit. And they would see the good that's coming out of the gathering place.
It's easy to comment from afar. That one is for sure. Ruby, I appreciate your time this morning and the work you're doing down and around the gathering place. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Quick clarification. Not so sure that 844 coming this month is a real thing from CRA. I had another little look around. I got an email from a contact I have at the federal level, so I don't think it's a thing, so don't hang your Christmas present shopping money on it. Let's take our final break in the morning. When we come back, Jason's there to talk rent control. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Let's go. Line number 2. Jason, you're on the air.
Hey, good afternoon, Paddy. How you doing?
Not too bad at all. How about you?
Oh, not too bad, Paddy. I just wanted to call in and put a little bit of insight on this, the cost of rent in the Greater St. John's area there.
Okay.
I'm hearing a lot of things about landlords and different things like that charging, this crazy amount of rent. What a lot of people got to understand is the amount of rent that people are charging is very closely tied to your economy, the mortgage rates, the prices around. Like, for example, today to go build a 2-apartment home will run you anywhere between $500,000 to $600,000. That's what they are now, to have a fully finished 2-apartment home. So, to break even on that kind of property, you're looking at $2,500 for upstairs and maybe $1,200 for downstairs. And you're lucky to break even on that, Paddy. And you're not making no money monthly, and the cost of repairs and appliances and all this, it's not like it was years ago where you could buy a rental and make a little bit every month. That's gone now, right?
And of course, let's just elaborate on that. So there's no question. So if you're trying to build a two-apartment home, just pick a square footage, 1,200. So it's in and around, $300 a square foot these days?
I would say you're probably close on there, yeah.
Okay. And, if you build a new rental, then, of course, the initial return on investment takes quite a long time, no doubt about it. I think where the problem becomes bigger for most is that when other landlords see the prices on what are really good quality apartments, relatively new, renovated, clean, all of that, it's the other rentals which are maybe a little bit more dingy and they're 30 years old and there's been very little upkeep and the kitchen's from 1975. And it's the same rent for that 2-bedroom as it is for the relatively new in the East End, close to public transportation. You know my point, right? It's not every rental is created equal, I think, is part of the problem.
Yes, 100%. I see what you're saying there, and that totally makes sense. I just wanted to put it out there that, like, when you do see a newer home that was built in the last 2 or 3 years, and you see it up for $2,500 or $2,300 rent, that landlord is not gouged. That landlord actually is taking a huge risk because he's just breaking even at the end of the month, and he got to pay taxes on that income that he did make, even though he's not making any surplus every month. You know, it's a long-term investment. I understand that, but he's paying taxes on what he did make to pay off to try to pay the mortgage. So, I mean, any less than that, he's losing money every month. If you understand what I'm saying.
I do. I mean, in a past life, we look at properties and consider them for whether it be a flip or consider them for a rental. And if you look at a property that maybe one of us would have considered 15 years ago, and the exact same square footage house of the exact same vintage, even the concept of a flip or to turn it into a rental is lost. It's just not there.
No, exactly, 100%. I mean, the market now is, from, you know, as you know, from 5 to 10 years, you know, it's not double, but it's not, you know, it's probably not far off in some aspects. So it's like, you know, I just want to put it out there for anyone that's renting. You know, it's tough right now, but it's not always not all landlords are out there to gouge and try and rip people off. You know, some people just look at it as a legitimate business and follow what the market should be, but sometimes reflecting what, I mean, a used 2 apartment now that's 20 years old is $400,000, and because there's not enough houses on the market, those houses are going for probably $450,000, you know, 30, 40, 50,000 above asking, because the way the economy is now, all the people starting out now almost need a 2 apartment to survive a $400,000 mortgage or $450,000 starting out. So the demand is there and it's huge. So that's also driving the prices of rent up. So just rent control is not the full answer for this. You know, you got to reflect your economy and the mortgage prices and the interest rates. All that comes into effect, right?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. You know, it's like most things in this world. The bad landlord or the slum landlord, they get the headlines. And so it seeps into people's psyches that all landlords are created the same. It's not true, just like not all rentals are created the same. And that's where sort of the conversation loses some of its nuance that's probably required for an accurate portrayal of what's actually happening out there. And you're mentioning a 2-bedroom unit. If you can see a 2-bedroom unit on the market in St. John's, for starters, they're extremely rare. And 50 over ask. Man, if you get one for 50 over ask, you robbed it, because I hear these kind of units going for 80 over ask, 90 over ask, which is wild.
Yeah, 100%, Paddy. And like I said, I just wanted to put it out there just to give the public some information, like some of the reflection on some of the numbers. Like, yeah, it's a crazy amount of money for someone to rent out there for sure, but it's good to sit back for a second and look at the numbers and say, you know, yeah, that house is 15, 20 years old. That guy is going to have to put a new roof on it soon. He's going to have to do this, and he's going to have to do that, and he paid $450 for it. So, you know, in an ideal world, what do I think a 3-bedroom upstairs should be charged? Maybe $1,300 a month, but it's $1,000 more than that now because of our economy and the world we're living in right now. So I just wanted to, just let people know that, you know, the where the numbers come into effect there, and it's not all just gouging, you know.
And I think that's fair. And, you know, in this conversation of rent control, if it ever actually happens in this province, you know, to look at predictable input increases over the course of a year. So if the number is 2% or 3%, and then floating targets, caveats for unexpected expenses and whatnot, where landlords can, you know, go through the channels that are already in place for exemptions. Like, for instance, if there's a storm which requires some immediate out-of-pocket expenses, if there's some sort of seismic move in interest rates, if there's something that complicates their predicted 12-month inputs, I think things like that can create a hybrid system without getting it too complicated where it just becomes some unwieldy behemoth of bureaucracy. But I think there's a conversation to be had. You know, and once again, I think looking at other provinces, BC in particular is a good case study, because when we're talking about population growth and rent control and whether or not that puts coal all water on the developers' plans to build rentals. It'd be nice to know how it's been working elsewhere. If it's proven to be an exercise of futility, just a political optical experience, then maybe we just shag it and never talk about it again. But I don't think we've even had a real conversation about that in this province as of yet. And it's probably more a Northeast Avalon conversation than anything else as well, which makes it even more tricky to talk about, I suppose.
Yeah, like you said, and I wouldn't be totally against some kind of rent control, but like you said, it all has to be. There's so many variables that has to be tied to. You know what I mean? For both parties, obviously, landlords and tenants, right? But I just want to put that out there, Paddy. It's not just an expensive world for renters either. It's also an expensive world for homeowners right now. So I just want to relay that message.
Oh, don't I know it? The glory of home ownership is fleeting.
Yeah, for sure.
I appreciate your time, Jason. Thanks a lot.
All right, thanks.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Yeah, which is why I try to couch it in so far as it's a conversation that has only had, the scratch of the surface. No real detailed understanding of both sides of the equation. That would be input costs and carry costs and unexpected expenses versus simply just to focus on how much it costs for the renter, because it is, I don't like to be a both sides guy, but in things like this where there are actually two parties in the exact same conversation, then an examination of how it could work. And I think that's the key, is just what it means for the renter. But if rent control has proven to be problematic for developers, and maybe they just overplay their cards and they'll use it as an excuse as opposed to even just the cost of construction and try and hit the affordability target, that's not as simple as it sounds. Even in the world of Build Canada homes and all the rest of it, we can build them. Whether or not people can afford them is another thing. And I think rent is a vastly different conversation than my mortgage payment, because my home is worth exactly what someone's willing to pay for it. Rental and the competitive marketplace, I think, makes it a slightly different, albeit in the same church, different pew. All right, good show today. Big thanks to all hands. We will indeed pick up this conversation again tomorrow morning, right here on VOCM and Big Land FM's Open Line. On behalf of the producer, David Williams, I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy day. We'll talk in the morning. Bye-bye.